it's very, very encouraging that there's been a broadening of union opposition to Prevent, but it's now very important that we intensify as well as broaden and that we move to a boycott. It's particularly important in Scotland because of the stage we're at. Prevent's been running for some time in England, but in Scotland we've got an opportunity to have an impact, to stop it in its tracks. The more people go on Prevent training, have their brains addled by Prevent training, the more difficult it will be to resist. The more people who supposedly officially know how to spot extremists, the harder it will be in those workplaces to not start reporting people. We need to stop this in its tracks, and unlike in England, we're in a position to do it. So it's really important that we move as rapidly as can be managed while maintaining some sort of unity in the unions concerned, that we move as rapidly as possible to boycott. That means not going on to Prevent training. That means having the collective backing of people in the workplace and the union when you don't go on Prevent training. That's the most important thing to happen now, in my view.
We really ought to get this out on social media much more, and suggested a hashtag no to prevent.
I've had people say to me, and I've even had public sector workers say to me, well, I don't need to worry about Prevent because the context in which the training is being given and the way that it's being rolled out is a context focusing on the Muslims amongst us. You know, the othering of the Muslim community and seeing them as a major threat. So I do think it is about, yes, saying no to Prevent, but also passing motions in unions about the increase of Islamophobia and recognising that is a major issue, in particular institutional Islamophobia. And actually, to be honest, Muslim people, women in particular, don't come forward. Why? Because, you know, it never goes anywhere. And also, we don't feel confident. You know, since, it's worth saying, since the Paris attacks, I know young women around me that are talking about not using public transport anymore. And I think, you know, yes, we need to fight against Prevent, but we have to fight about the wider narrative of demonising and othering of the Muslim community within our society.
Menendez was killed because he was thought of being a Muslim, and he was not Muslim, obviously. So this is how it's not to do with the Muslim ideology. There is nothing in the basis of Islam that supports violent extremism. It's not Muslims that this is about. It's just racist to achieve an end.
It's been really important in Scotland that leading politicians have taken quite strong positions against British foreign policy and opposing war, including the current First Minister and so on, who have spoken on Stop the War platforms in the past. But I do believe it's a disgrace that the Scottish Government is pushing forward Prevent without any attempt to understand what it's about, to say that it's anything other than a good thing. And I think this is being done without most of the current MSPs, and certainly most of those that are likely to get elected in a few days' time, being particularly aware of this issue at all. Some of them, I think, will be appalled to understand what's going on, and I think we need to really, over the next month or so, get that issue right on the political agenda in Scotland. And it's not the only thing we have to do. All of the things at the grassroots will be the things that make it work. But actually, we will find some allies, and I think we have to break this cosy consensus that somehow it's neither Westminster's responsibility nor Holyrood's responsibility, it just has to happen, because that's what they're saying at the moment. It doesn't have to happen, and it shouldn't happen, and we need to make it stop. And I think the other thing I just want to say is that the kind of testimony that Zareen and others have said, and that I remember being at other meetings in this room, hearing about the kinds of things that are happening on the streets of Edinburgh now in terms of what particularly our Muslim sisters are actually having to undergo, is something that we really, every one of us has to stand up against. And I think we have to make meetings like this and everything we do in the next months and time to come is acts of solidarity to make sure that that's that they don't stand alone and that it stops.
I don't think the starting point is appealing to our elected politicians, because if anything that this week has taught us through the Hillsborough campaign is they know how bad things are. They choose to hold a position. It's not that they're blind to how much devastation is being caused by the bombing in Syria. It's not that they're blind to the plight of the refugees. They choose not to do anything. And the only time they choose to change that positioning is when we mobilise. And I think it's really heartening, and I think it's a really upbeat message coming from the meeting that there are trade unions doing something, they're having the confidence to fight back. And I think we need to do more of that, because actually only when they see us shift do they shift. And it is really, regardless of what the legislation is, someone said to me, what Parliament says, you can change on the streets. I think we really can. We have enough of a movement against the attack around Prevent, against the racism towards the Muslim community, against the vile treatment towards the refugees. We can shift that. If we can build enough people and enough solidarity, it matters what we do. So, if you can get behind that, if you're in a union, pass a motion, support the refugees. Don't let them divide us. Don't let them say that actually, because they're not British, they're somehow different, or because they're not Europeans, they're somehow different and worth less. Well, they're a special case. Their human rights aren't the same because they're such a big threat to us. That's where it's going. And I also want to say is actually it's not just about Muslims. We've talked a lot about the Muslim community and the Prevent agenda. But let's be quite clear. Today it's about Muslims, but they use that same agenda, that same legislation to attack the rest of us. Because I think Prevent is about pushing back on dissent. And today it might be the Muslim community, but tomorrow it's going to be the trade unions. And it's for that reason that I think we need to build the biggest movement. If you can help, please do get behind it and let's show the government that we won't let them divide us.
Firstly, I agree completely with what Pete said about the Scottish Government. I think what Nahela said is also very important, because they'll only begin to take notice of us once we start building greater strength to push against them. But we do need to start exposing the way in which they're ducking and the buck's being passed backwards and forwards between Westminster and the Scottish Government. But they're pretty determined to keep Prevent. They'll only change their minds if we are visibly in a position to make them do it. I think we haven't discussed very much at this meeting is, it's very, very encouraging indeed that the Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign have given their support to this meeting. And in England, we've been seeing over the last year or so children going to school with leaflets about BDS have been targeted. Support for Palestine is so strong in Scotland. When I look at the growing demonisation of any opposition to Israel, I think we can't take that for granted. I think that kind of targeting of Palestinian activism may happen in Scotland too. In relation to that, as in relation to everything else, Prevent is discriminatory. It's Muslim children going to school with BDS leaflets who've been targeted in England, not non-Muslim children. The same thing may happen in Scotland. We need to both step up our campaign against Prevent. We are at the beginning of Prevent proper. Prevent's been in Scotland since 2008 in some form, but this is the beginning of real Prevent. A year from now, if things go on as they do, and if we don't take some action about it, a very large number of public sector workers who have received Prevent training will be in a completely different position to the one we're in now. It will be much harder to fight Prevent. Of course, we'll go on fighting it, and of course we'll have the advantage that awareness will be raised, but at that point we'll be fighting trench warfare against Prevent. It's really important that we try to stop that happening, that we try to stop Prevent in its tracks right now, not a year from now. We do need, if you're in a trade union, especially a public sector trade union, push your union towards boycott of Prevent. If you're not in a trade union, for this to be possible, for it to happen, trade unions need to see a general public awareness about Prevent. So this isn't a job just for trade unionists. Everybody needs to be talking about Prevent. If you're a Muslim, what I'm going to say now is going to be a hard thing to say, because I know that Muslims are the people who are targeted over this. But if we hear Muslims and Muslims organisations excusing Prevent, saying it doesn't really matter very much, that will undermine the drive towards getting trade unions to take a position against Prevent. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say it. I know it's a tougher thing for Muslims and non-Muslims to do, but we do need some degree of support from the Muslim community, or at least an absence of the sort of comments that will undermine what we're trying to do. We have a fight on our hands. Let's fight it, please.